There is a moment you know well. You wake up knowing exactly what you need to do. The task sits there waiting. It is not impossible. It is just hard. Your mind says, start now, but your body will not move. 5 minutes, you tell yourself. I will start in 5 minutes. 5 minutes becomes an hour. The hour becomes the whole day. And at night, you lie there with that familiar weight pressing on your chest. I could have done it. I should have done it. But I did not. This happens again tomorrow, and the day after, until weeks have passed and you start to believe something is deeply wrong with you, that you lack discipline, that you are lazy, that you will never change. But what if none of that is true? What if your brain is not broken at all, but simply doing exactly what it was designed to do? In feudal Japan, there was an understanding about difficult tasks that we have completely lost in the modern world. The samurai knew that hard things break most people, not because those people are weak, but because they approach the difficulty in the wrong way. They try to overpower it. They try to force themselves through it. And force always fails eventually. The ancient warriors discovered a method that worked with human nature instead of against it. A method so simple, it sounds almost ridiculous when you first hear it. Yet this method created some of the most disciplined, focused minds in history. They called it the Way of the Lotus. The Japanese word for lotus is hasu. If you have ever seen one, you know these flowers are stunning. Pure white or soft pink petals floating on still water, looking almost too perfect to be real. Tourists visit temple ponds during summer just to photograph them. They see beauty, but the Japanese see something else. They see a teaching about transformation that changes everything you think you know about discipline and willpower. Here is what most people do not understand. The lotus does not grow in clean water. It cannot grow in clean water. The lotus grows at the bottom of murky ponds, its roots deep in thick mud. The darker the mud, the stronger the lotus. The flower pulls nutrients from decay. It uses the pressure of the water above to build a stem powerful enough to break through to the surface. Then, only after rising through all that darkness and struggle, does it finally bloom. And here is the part that matters. The lotus does not bloom despite the mud. It blooms because of the mud. This is the opposite of what we believe about hard things. We think difficulty is the enemy. We think resistance means something is wrong. We think if we were stronger, smarter, more disciplined, the hard parts would feel easy. But that is a lie that makes you weak. The samurai understood this. They had a phrase, Doro no Naka, in the mud. The mud is not the problem. The mud is where you begin. Trying to skip it, trying to start somewhere else, trying to force yourself to feel ready before you feel ready. This is what actually breaks you. Not the difficulty itself, but your war against the difficulty. Most of us were taught to handle hard tasks through force. Just do it. Push through. Stop being lazy. This works occasionally through sheer willpower, but then you collapse. The resistance comes back stronger. You try again. You collapse again. Each time takes more effort. Each failure makes you doubt yourself more. Eventually, you just stop trying. Not because you are weak, but because you are exhausted from fighting yourself. There is a different way. The first principle is called Doro no Naka. This phrase means in the mud, and it is about acceptance. Not the passive kind where you give up. The active kind where you stop pretending and start seeing. When a task feels impossible, most people immediately judge themselves. I should be able to do this. Everyone else can do this. What is wrong with me? This judgment creates a war inside you. Part of you says you must do it. Another part freezes in resistance. These parts battle each other while the task stays undone. The way of the lotus says something radical. The resistance is not your enemy. The resistance is information. Your nervous system is trying to tell you something. Listen to it. A man spent 3 years trying to make himself write a book. Every morning, he would sit at his desk, stare at the blank page, and feel his chest tighten. His mind would go blank. He would sit there for an hour, accomplishing nothing. Then he would give up, feeling like a failure. He tried everything: motivation videos, accountability partners, deleting all distractions. Nothing worked. Then he tried something different. Instead of forcing himself to write, he sat down and asked a simple question. Why does this feel so hard? The answer came immediately. He was terrified the book would be bad, that people would judge him, that he would prove he had no talent. Once he named this fear clearly, something shifted. The fear did not disappear, but he stopped fighting it. He said out loud, "I am afraid this will be bad. That is okay. I will write it anyway." That simple acknowledgement broke the paralysis. He started writing one terrible sentence per day. Just one. Most days, the sentences were genuinely awful, but he was writing. Within 6 months, he had a complete first draft. Not because he became braver or more disciplined, but because he stopped wasting energy fighting his own fear. This is Doro no Naka. You acknowledge exactly where you are, not where you wish you were, not where you think you should be, where you actually are right now, in the mud, with all your fear and resistance and doubt. You stop pretending these things are not there. You name them clearly. Then you discover something surprising. Once you stop fighting the mud, you can start using it. The second principle is Hitotsu Zutsu, one by one step at a time. Here is how most people fail at hard things. They see the finished result and try to create it immediately. Someone wants someone to write a book, so they plan to write for 3 hours today. They sit down. 3 hours feels impossible. They write nothing. They have failed before they even started. The way of the lotus says you are looking at the wrong thing. You are looking at the bloomed flower and trying to create that in one day. But that is not how it works. A lotus seed does not become a flower overnight. It moves through stages. Each stage is small. Each stage is necessary. The seed sits in darkness first, just sits there, doing nothing visible. Then, eventually, a tiny root extends. Then the root pushes deeper. Then a shoot forms. Then the shoot inches upward through the water. Then a stem develops. Then a bud appears. Then the bud opens. Each stage is simple by itself, but each stage must happen in sequence. You cannot skip ahead. The shoot cannot form before the root. The bud cannot open before the stem grows. This is how your brain works too. It builds capacity gradually through repeated exposure to increasing difficulty. It does not jump from 0 to hero in one leap. That is fantasy. Real change happens in stages so small they seem almost insulting. A woman had been avoiding an important certification exam for 2 years. Every time she thought about studying, her mind went blank with overwhelm. The material felt impossible. She tried making study plans. They all failed. Then she tried Hitotsu Zutsu. She told herself she would study for exactly 2 minutes, not 2 hours. 2 minutes. That is one step. When those 2 minutes ended, she could stop. This was so ridiculously small that her resistance had nothing to grab onto. She set a timer and started. Most days she continued beyond 2 minutes once she started, because starting was the only hard part. But some days she stopped at 2 minutes. That was okay. 2 minutes was her commitment. Over weeks, those 2-minute sessions became 5 minutes, then 10, then 20. She never forced it. The growth happened naturally as her brain built the capacity to handle more. 6 months later, she passed the exam. Not because she found motivation or became more disciplined, but because she stopped trying to skip stages. The third principle changes everything. It is called Migaki, polishing. In Japan, sword making is an art that takes years to master. After a blade is forged, it goes through polish. This is not one process. It is thousands of small processes. The swordsmith takes the blade and rubs it against a polishing stone. One pass, then another pass, then another. Each pass removes tiny imperfections invisible to the eye. Each pass is gentle. Too much pressure damages the blade, but the pressure, though gentle, is constant. Day after day, week after week. Thousands of passes with finer and finer stones. Eventually, the rough forged metal becomes a mirror-perfect blade that can cut through bamboo. The transformation comes not from one dramatic moment, but from gentle repetition over time. This is how you make hard things automatic, not through intensity, through consistency. A businessman had a project he had been avoiding for 8 months. Every time he thought about it, he felt exhausted. He tried forcing himself to work on it for full afternoons. He would complete nothing. The overwhelm was too great. Then he tried Migaki. He decided to work on the project for exactly 15 minutes every morning before checking email. Just 15 minutes. Not an hour. Not until it was done. 15 minutes. This was short enough that he never felt resistance, but it was long enough to make actual progress. Each day was one pass of the polishing stone. Small, gentle, consistent. After 2 months, the project was done. He had not worked harder. He had worked steadily, one pass at a time. Now, here's the twist you need to understand. These 3 principles work together in a specific way. Doro no Naka tells you to stop fighting and start listening. Hitotsu Zutsu tells you to work in stages your nervous system can handle. Migaki tells you to maintain gentle pressure over time. But there is one more piece that makes it all work. Something the samurai understood deeply. When you do hard things correctly, you stop using willpower entirely. This sounds impossible. We believe willpower is the only way to accomplish difficult tasks. But willpower is finite. It drains quickly. It fails under stress. The masters knew a secret. Real discipline does not come from forcing yourself. It comes from removing the resistance that makes force necessary. When you acknowledge where you are, break the task into stages your brain can handle, and repeat those stages daily, something happens. The task stops feeling hard. Not because you got stronger, but because you built a pathway. Your brain expects it now. It becomes automatic. Like walking, like breathing. You do it without thinking. This is the bloom. There was once a German philosopher named Eugen Herrigel who went to Japan in the 1920s to study Zen. He wanted to understand Eastern philosophy, so he began training in Kyudo, the martial art of archery. His teacher was a master named Awa Kenzo. For 4 years, Kenzo would not let Herrigel shoot at a real target. 4 years. He could only shoot at a roll of straw 7 feet away. Herrigel grew frustrated. He thought Kenzo was wasting his time with these basic drills. Finally, Kenzo let him shoot at a distant target. Herrigel missed completely. Over and over. He became discouraged with each failed shot. He blamed his aim. His teacher watched silently, then said something that changed everything. You are trying to force the arrow to the target. This creates tension. The tension destroys your accuracy. Stop aiming. Let the arrow aim itself. Herrigel thought this was nonsense. How can you hit a target without aiming? But he tried it. He focused only on his breath, his posture, his grip. He released the arrow without trying to control where it went. And suddenly, his arrows began hitting the center. Not every time, but more and more often. He had learned what the samurai knew. You do not force your brain to do hard things. You create the conditions where hard things become natural. Here's how to apply the way of the lotus to your own life. 1. Identify the hard task you have been avoiding. Write down exactly why it feels difficult. Do not judge these reasons. Simply name them clearly. This is Doro no Naka. Standing in the mud without pretending it is not there. 2. Break the task into the smallest possible first step. If you cannot complete that step in 2 minutes or less, make it smaller. This is Hitotsu Zutsu. Working in stages your nervous system can handle. 3. Commit to doing that smallest step at the same time every day for 14 days. Set a timer. When the timer sounds, you can stop. You have kept your commitment. This is Migaki. Gentle daily pressure. 4. When resistance appears, do not fight it. Get curious about it instead. Ask yourself, what is my nervous system trying to protect me from? 5. Trust the stages. The seed does not question why it must start in darkness. It simply begins where it is and grows. The hard tasks in your life are not punishment. They are not proof that something is wrong with you. They are the mud, and the mud is where the lotus grows. You do not need more discipline or willpower or motivation. You need to stop fighting and start growing. Accept where you are. Work in small stages. Apply gentle daily pressure. The bloom will come. Not because you forced it, but because you created the conditions that make blooming natural. If you are ready to stop forcing and start growing, write in the comments, "I will grow like the lotus." Thank you for watching.